I'm glad you're here. I'm going to Pepe's for lunch, but Carlo called in sick. You up for a drive?
Sure, boss.
Bravo. I'm already starving.
It's only the start of it, Tom. Jesus, can a guy not even get some lunch?
Don't Salieri! Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Good to see you, Pepe.
Remember the good old days when the relationship between movies and video games meant the game was just a glorified ad for the movie? And that all of these were terrible? Me neither. Must have been all that drinking. Well, Mafia went for the twist and tried making a video game that very much feels like a movie, from the characters and setting to the story and atmosphere taking center stage over gameplay mechanics. Not that it wasn't a video game. You can still shoot things and drive your car, but is that enough to warrant all the extra work to make it an interactive experience? Developed by Czech studio Illusion Softworks and published in 2002 by Gathering of Developers, who were known for some pretty solid titles, and generally being some pretty cool dudes. They would later be bought out by... And then, years later, the game would be remade by Pangar 13, who had some good faith to win back. What came out is 2020's Mafia Definitive Edition, which I will be primarily covering in this video. So was the remake necessary, or just a common trend at the time? And is Mafia worth the play, or would the cutscene rundown on YouTube suffice? Let's find out. Our main man this time is Tommy Angelo, jaded cabbie in 1930s New York, lost heaven, just one naggy customer away from losing it.
The only tip I'll give you is to stop smoking in your vehicle.
God damn it. He has a run-in with fate when the mob needs an impromptu wheelman and realizes that, hey, this is way more fun than driving drunkards around, or having stuck-up Wall Street jerks telling me to get a real job.
If you ever find a real job, then maybe you'll understand.
He passes the driving skill check required to join, well, kinda. Meets the Don, and the rest is history. Literally, the game starts in medias res.
No. I was a cab driver back in '30.
The remake looks phenomenal. Not necessarily the textures, but this isn't just a random cityscape sandbox. It's a real-life postcard of the 1930s.
Our attack upon these enemies must be without stint and without discrimination. I advise staying with your family, friends, or loved ones and waiting out this dreadful storm in the warmth of the home. That's all for now. Some music will be along shortly, and I'll be back to check in with you later.
Mafia very closely follows the film noir and gangster film aesthetics of classic movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas. I wouldn't call it full-on film noir, even if it does have some clear elements, but they do let you try it on for size. This more closely resembles a neo-noir style, something like BioShock Infinite or Fallout 4. Think less futuristic, but still sinister behind the happy-go-lucky facade. 1930s Lost Heaven is set right at the start of the Great Depression and about a year after the onset of Prohibition. You can read about it in the paper, hear it on the radio, and you can see it on the streets. As years go by and you get further into the story, there's big signs of things getting worse if you're inclined to look for them. It's all very much in the background, but always present. You never quite forget the circumstances that may have gotten people in situations like Tommy's. In typical gangster movie fashion, this starts off pretty lighthearted, even jokey. Much like Tommy himself, you're pulled into this universe step by step, not knowing exactly what you're signing up for, but if you do take a look, the fine print is already legible. But more on that in the story section. What does this game offer in terms of atmosphere? Despite it being a third-person game, Mafia goes all in on immersion. This is a game that wears its influences on its sleeves and never tries to be more than it actually is. You're here for a cinematic experience, but a lot of the story is delivered through long cutscenes with minimal interactivity. Plenty of games put very little effort into this aspect, even when it's essentially the only thing they have going for them. But Mafia goes that extra mile in maintaining the illusion. The character models in the cutscenes, the voice acting in general, and the writing and the lip syncing are all top-notch.
It's a half hour before the starting gun goes off, so this is not a discussion. The Don wants to win, but more importantly, he wants Morello to lose. And you are our best wheelman. Otherwise, I'd be talking to someone else.
In gameplay, this aspect is furthered through the attention to detail. I'm no car guy in general, let alone classic 30s American cars, but when they all look much the same to me, and there's almost 60 different models in the game, someone clearly did their homework. Driving them around town, with one exception, is a pleasure because of the ambience. They even have the radio get static when going through a tunnel.
That although the rain is heavy at this moment, and that all warnings should be heeded, the storm isn't expected to last all that long. Certainly, it doesn't seem...
Another of these details is the filters they use over the voice acting, depending on where the conversation is taking place, though this can be a bit hit and miss.
I'll see you tomorrow. Let me get my coat.
I'll wait for you outside. You okay?
I don't need anyone walking me home.
Hey, we were talking about meeting up tonight anyway.
I guess.
And you can quit worrying about what he's gonna think.
Not the point, Tom. He treats me like a kid sometimes.
There's very little for me to complain about, honestly. The atmosphere and presentation are some, if not the main draws of the game, and especially if gangster dramas are your jam, you really can't go wrong. That said, it's not flawless. When your game is this polished and story-driven, when it leans this hard into immersion, the slightest thing can break the spell. So when I implant this guy into a door, or when corpses start turning into plastic mannequins, it can really pull you out of the experience. Have you ever played GTA when you were a kid and thought, I'm gonna drive around while not breaking any driving laws? Well, that's this game. You literally have a speed limiter on your car that you can turn on if you want to be a good boy and not get fined by the cops. Driving onto upcoming traffic though, that's A-okay. I'm getting sidetracked again, let's take it from the top. I'm contractually obligated to be 100% fair and objective in all of these reviews, so I won't sugarcoat it. The gameplay in Mafia is kind of dated. By like, when did Vice City come out? Not that it didn't improve upon the original, or that it's bad by any means, it's just a bit bland and bare bones. You have your cover system, you have a variety of weapons that you can use, but won't, because the Tommy gun is right there, and shotgun spread follows the entropy system. You also have throwables that are pretty niche and rarely all that useful, and a checkpoint-based healing system. The shooting is functional and feels fine. You can gauge where your crosshair will be when going out of cover, so you can line up the shot from safety when you get used to it. As much as this is a game about story, and playing it on the lowest difficulty to just get to the next cutscene faster is something that many people do, if you're actually looking for a challenge, classic difficulty is the only way to go. It's pretty fair, honestly, no bullet sponge enemy bullshit. Both you and the enemies die way faster, but you don't get one-tapped unless you're unlucky. You have time to dodge around and find cover before you're shot full of holes. If you're fighting more than one or two enemies, which is a common occurrence, they can randomly align their shots so that there's always at least one guy shooting in your direction while the others reload. This puts you in a situation where you have to line up that shot on their head before getting out of cover, and even then, there's always a chance that you will get shot. There's pretty much no avoiding it. Once you get good at it, you can minimize this damage by headshotting everyone, and if you're patient, when there's only 2 or 3 of them left, you can conserve some health. But usually, after a long fight, you're not gonna be very healthy, and that's where the game will decide to autosave and throw in another batch of goons. So now, you have to do the same thing, but you're 1 or 2 bullets away from death. There's a bit of a saving grace. You do regenerate some health naturally if you're on death's door, and usually do get to the point where one mistake is permissible. But you still will die a lot in these situations. And oh boy, when you do, you get this nice death montage where Tommy does his best impression of that guy from Karate Girl. Jesus Christ, does he take his sweet time going down, and it's not over yet. You then get a death screen, and only after can you press that reload button. You can't escape out and load the checkpoint either after you die. You have to watch the entire thing, and the cherry on top is that the loading time is also pretty slow, even on an M2 SSD. I get it, it's punishment for dying, it's kinda what video games do, but unlike something like Dark Souls, where the choice is deliberate for you to analyze your surroundings, what enemies are still left, formulate a strategy, and remember where your souls are. Here, you just die, and then come back in the exact same spot with all your ammo back. It's simply just an inconvenience, and doesn't really add anything else. So that's the shooting. Sounds pretty negative, but it's not. It's more like there's nothing to praise because everything is as you expect, with some minor annoyances. There's also a stealth system that comes in handy sometimes. It's pretty straightforward and functional for what it is, though I don't get the inclusion of carrying bodies around. I don't remember it ever being useful. And this brings me to the driving. They went with realistic mechanics. You can toggle different styles in the options menu, like automatic and even manual if you're off your rocker. There's a RAM button that comes in very handy, and you can definitely get used to driving fast for chases or being chased in the city. So let's talk about what you're all waiting for. Fair play. Let me set the scene. It starts simple enough. There's a big race coming, the family has some big bucks riding on this prodigy, but there's heavy competition, so maybe we even the odds. You have to take this guy's race car and bring it over to a mechanic who will fix it, nice and good. You're under a time limit, so you feel the pressure, but it's not too bad. Car is nice and fast. You get away from the cops immediately after they spot you. So the car gets whacked, and then you have to bring it back to the garage. Here's the first hurdle. You still have the time limit, but the car is all wobbly and the engine really wants to explode. Still not too bad, maybe a try or two. You learn when to press that speed limit button and you're set. At this point, you might ask something like, is this it? It was pretty annoying, but that wasn't so bad. It's race day, and as you wait on the tracks for the show to begin, Alfred has some bad news. The kid's in stitches. They went for the old fix the racer trick instead, and guess what?
And you are our best wheelman.
So you get in the car, you get the Wacky Racers intro.
And now here they are, the most daredevil group of daffy drivers to ever whirl their wheels in the wacky races, competing for the title of the world's wackiest racer. Right behind is Tommy Angelo.
And you might be excited. A race with Mafias driving up to now? That sounds amazing. I can't wait. The race starts. You hold the acceleration button. You get to the famous first corner and you try to brake. The car turns 180. Huh? That's weird. You don't really have to brake so much in the regular game. Maybe it was a bug? Let's try again. So you get touched by a car from the back and get turned 180. You reload. You somehow get first place early. You slow down before a curve just to have all remaining 14 cars pass you in 2 seconds. Over and over and over again, you fail. The car turns 180 if you brake while turning. The car spins if you touch anything on the road. The car spins to the right as you're curbing to the left and hit something in front of you. The car stops in place if you hit the smallest corner of the wall. It's awful. But I still beat it on the first try. Pretty easy, really. Not sure what people are talking about. Now, I understand the community is technically split on this issue. Some appreciate the realistic mechanics and see the slippery driving as a challenge to conquer. The rest call the driving a pile of unmitigated shit. Everybody is a bit different and has different opinions. One's trash can be someone else's treasure and all that, and it is in the nature of opinion to be subjective and respected from its unique point of view, even if with a healthy dose of disagreement. That being said, everybody calling this a nice challenge is objectively wrong, and dumb, and fat. The driving in Mafia is 100% academically a terrible piece of game engineering, and the people who designed it should be ashamed. Of course, all of this only applies to the classic difficulty, or at least that's the only way I've experienced it, and the usual advice you'll get is to just turn it down for this one mission. Bullshit. You will suffer in here with the rest of us and like it, but I will give you some pointers. First, I played with keyboard. Some call me crazy, but some haven't played as much Need for Speed 2 Hot Seat with their brother back in the day. Tapping those steer keys is second nature to me. Second, if you hold the RAM button, it locks you on a grid with the current face of your car. Pin it to right click and hold it for the entire race, or at least in curves. You'll get used to it in 3 or 4 tries and then never take another one without it again. Never, ever touch that brake button. Just slow down and use RAM instead. Third, grass patches. Cut through them. There's multiple, but these 2 are mandatory. This one, however, bait. Stay away from it. And finally, fourth, you need to be top 3 in the first lap. Use the famous curve to ram into the cars in front of you at full speed and not get thrown into a wall. Okay, that's enough of that. The driving in this game is fine when you get used to it, but that race is a major roadblock and you will need some time with it. The last gameplay element worth mentioning is the sandbox itself, because this is technically open world. The sandbox in Mafia is the equivalent of baking a whole wedding cake, just to keep it in a display case as presentation and then throw it out when people are seated. It's beautiful, full of flavor, and completely useless. There are collectibles and cars that you can find, and these are worth it as an excuse to see more of the beautiful locations that they painstakingly built, but that's it. No side quests, no Radiant quests, nothing. It sounds rough, but don't take it the wrong way. Mafia should and is designed to be seen as a linear and story-driven video game, and the sandbox plays a huge role in that. In a movie, when something shocking happens, the director might give you a few seconds to recover and internalize it. In Mafia, you get the whole 5 minutes drive back home and between locations, and nobody's stopping you from taking the scenic route. It acts as important relief from the sometimes heavy events that happen in the story. You finish a mission and maybe something tragic happens. You're not immediately blasted with music. Sometimes it's just quiet for a few seconds. It's night and it's raining. You get those few seconds the director would have put in The Godfather, and then the radio starts, but it's still not music. It's a talk show about the Great Depression or about Prohibition, adding more insult to injury. After a lighthearted mission, you might get the highlights of a baseball game or a speech from a man running for council. The game mechanics and the sandbox act as characters in the story, enhancing and deflating situations as deemed necessary by the director. But the director is you. Maybe you don't want to hear about all these unemployment stats, so you change the channel or turn the radio off. Maybe it's just a nice day for a walk, so you leave the car in the parking lot. Maybe the scene of you collecting from a failing business is too heavy, so you stare down the guy's nagging Italian mother and give yourself a laugh. If Scorsese did that in any movie, he'd be called a hack. That's the power of the interactive medium, and even something as cinematic and story-driven as this can feel way different depending. And close your ears, because I'm gonna talk about the story, and the story is Mafia 1, so I'll be thorough. It's a gangster story, so you know the drill. Betrayal, tone shifts, heavy New York Italian accents, and a major lack of plot armor. It's a story about awful people doing awful things and sometimes feeling bad about it. There's no way for me to talk about it freely. Consider this entire section to be spoilers from here on out if you've never seen a De Palma movie, and I'll see you around here for some afterthoughts. We've established that the game starts in medias res, with Tommy trying to negotiate some protection for his family. You get a presentation of his start with the mob. The highlights are his meeting with Sam and Polly, his subsequent punishment and revenge, and him joining the family under the false pretense that it would only be mundane legal jobs around the bar. You should also keep in mind, because I'll have a bit about this later, that he joins for selfish reasons. The adrenaline rush, the paycheck, and his fear of dying a loser. Very important. So you meet some more of the family, all well fleshed out characters with very distinct personalities.
So you listen and listen good. First, no cursing on the premises. There's a million words out there. And the man who needs to resort to fuck this and fuck that is just ignorant or lazy.
Fuck me. I feel called out. The game likes jumping the boring stuff to highlights while also reinforcing that this is all in the past. We're in spoilers, so I'll mention this now. This is a Mafia game. Plot armor should be a distant illusion, so why are we establishing from the very beginning that Tommy will be safe for the next 8 years? Missed opportunity for free tension, if you ask me. So you eventually get your first real job to help Polly and Sam with a routine collection. Since we're here, we should talk about them a bit more. The relationship between these characters and Tommy is built very well and flows naturally. You go through the beats from holding you at gunpoint when you were a stranger to a sort of cool professional respect when you prove yourself by getting out of trouble. Polly is especially well characterized early. He starts by showing you the ropes, almost trying to make you into his lackey, but then, seeing your competence, he gives up and opts for friendship instead. It's not just that either, you also get to see him struggle with some insecurities.
We ain't nothing alike.
And maybe a bit of an anger issue as well.
He's doing the store on his own?
Yeah, when Polly's built up a little steam, he needs to let it out on his own.
Door gets kicked down and in come the cops. I was out that back door in a second.
Yeah, Eugene's nephew ain't having much fun right now.
So they reach their last stop and it all goes bad. Polly gets shot and Sam gets tortured for information. Tommy gets into his first shootout and also his first chase where he isn't prey and gets some time to reflect at the end of it all.
I should have took off there and then. But I couldn't go back to being a nobody.
The story gets very linear after this as you show your worth as an ace driver. He gets to know Sarah a bit better. Luigi basically throws her in his lap. Having worked the bar for many years, she understands what this life implies and has become desensitized to it. The perfect woman. Next, you're supposed to meet a branch of the family to close a booze deal, but obviously it all goes to shit. Most of them are killed before you even get there, and Sam gets shot pretty badly. You have to protect him as cops try putting a stop to the deal in a pretty intense barn shootout and subsequent car chase. You manage to escape and get Sam to the family doctor, but you can see on Tommy's face that something is very different. This mission acts as a major tone shift from the rest of the game, and my particular experience enhanced it greatly. As you finish the mission, you get to drive over at Sarah's yourself, but when I entered my car, the usual music didn't play. It was actually very quiet for a few seconds, and afterwards, it was still not music.
If I am asked whether the American people will pull themselves out of this depression, I answer, they will if they want to.
You can see this as adding insult to injury, but it's also a sort of reinforcement. Yes, today went horribly, but so what? Not a lot of good things are waiting on the outside of this life either for now. I don't think it could have been any more perfect, especially if it was random, since I didn't replay the mission to check, but even if your experience isn't quite the stroke of random storytelling genius, the writers still planned for all of this to make sense. As you get home, you can see Sarah wasn't exactly thrilled by how late you were, reading the newspaper with eyes glazed over, but all's well. Tommy was home after all, so she can start the nagging girlfriend routine.
You're late. Dinner's cold.
Work.
It's such a powerful scene with so many things that are happening in both the characters and the players' heads. What do you even focus on? It can be overwhelming if you actually stand there thinking about how many implications are firing on all cylinders at the same time during this scene, but then they kill it.
Marry me.
Okay.
I laughed so hard at this scene. I was just sitting there thinking about the implications, and then this delivery, so emotionless and basic, it completely deflates all of that building tension. I'm not even sure if it's a good or a bad thing. Maybe the point was to lighten the jarring tone shift and get back to business as usual. For me, it cemented this as the best scene in the entire game, so I guess it worked. You get the gist at this point. This is a pretty basic gangster story and honestly a bit cliché. I could honestly see most of the major story beats that would unfold along the way just from the characters' presentations and some of the early interactions. But it's so well crafted that it doesn't even matter, and I also have to give it credit where it's due. This was one of the first gangster-inspired video games. Remember, this came out officially in 2002. But I will go over some more highlights for the eventual moral of the story. We go through some of the major character arcs, starting with Frank wanting out of this life, despite being the Don's right-hand man for years.
Christ, Frank. Why didn't you ask us for help?
I guess I just wanted out. One way or the other. I'm tired, Tommy. Tired of lying to my wife. Tired of checking under my car every time I take a Sunday drive. And tired of waiting for the Don to put two in my temple.
Even Don Salieri, the always calm and collected leader, has his limits when his trusty chauffeur sells him out and basically starts an all-out war with the rival family.
Get down!
But he's not done yet. You can tell the atmosphere around Salieri has changed, but you don't really get a full taste of it until after the cigar diamond scene.
Then let's make sure we don't get caught. Right?
What a ruse it was indeed.
What the hell?
Christ. It's dope.
We put our fucking necks out on the line for this shit.
Looks like it.
So, having lost faith in their Don, Tommy and Polly plan a hit of their own. Sam is present for the brainstorming, but is unusually reluctant to participate. You obviously succeed. You still need to get to that bar and talk to the detective. But then, when you split after it, planning to also split the dough the next day, something's off.
Unless I'm halfway to Hawaii.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, you're nervous about something. Probably you don't even know why yet.
Well, that must be it. God, Jesus.
Conveniently, Sam has dramatic timing down to a science, so he swoops in to save you from your situation by trying to kill you.
This is what you were looking for, Polly's. Here's your cut. It's more than you deserve.
It's Mafia. What did you expect? There's been very little betrayal so far, so they had to go hardcore in the final scenes. But again, you win. You knew that already. In Medias Res has a way of pulling a lot of punches from the plot. You don't even let Sam finish his monologue. I'll take a break here to make a point about the OG. While you feel very little for Sam in Definitive Edition, or I didn't at least, this whole scene in the OG is way more somber in tone, way more nuanced and grey.
I stood by you, you rat. You're dangerous, Tom.
Not that it's vastly better, just different. A good reason to not disregard the original. After this misadventure is when you finally close the deal with the detective. You see most of the family getting taken to prison, the Don himself getting life, and even Tommy didn't escape. After being released though, he gets to host a beautiful wedding for his very pixelated daughter, and you can see him living happily ever after. But Cake, you ask, 8 years in prison just to live to old age is a pretty good deal. I feel like that crime does not pay moral is lost on this ending. Oh, right. Well, that's because it isn't. Some characters from Mafia 2 come over and blow a hole through his gut, and then everybody else lives happily ever after. The end. But in all seriousness, crime does not pay isn't that he got to die at old age, his sins finally catching up to him. It's supposed to be the journey, seeing him hesitate at every moment, seeing so many people around him trying to escape this life, seeing his wife worry about him and his Don sending him on a suicide mission for pennies on the dollar. Why else would they want to rob a bank just to buy a fucking pizzeria? I mean, come on. Now, if I were to be a bit controversial, I'm going to preface this by saying I thoroughly enjoyed and recommend the game. I fully understand that not everybody has my kind of brain damage when it comes to media appreciation. This is just one of my long-held hot takes that I wish to get the discussion rolling. I have a fundamental problem with Mafia and organized crime media in general, and it's about the framing. It's often a cheap way to make characters seem morally complex.
everything I have, I got with Frank.
But here, where's the gray area? Tommy didn't get pulled into the mob because of immense hardship or circumstances outside of his control. It was just a random scuffle, no strings attached, and he got a little too high on adrenaline. And now I'm supposed to care when he hesitates to pull the trigger right after I've mowed down 50 people in gameplay? Imagine if Tommy lost his taxi license because of the incident, or found himself struggling to pay rent as the depression worsened. That story would have hit a lot harder. Obviously, you can also interpret Mafia's story very differently, and I feel like most people do. It's supposed to be this tale about the glamour promised by this kind of lifestyle and how easily, win by win, it can corrupt even the most principled people. The Salieri's downfall didn't come from being defeated by competition or not providing the best services. It came from good old-fashioned greed. But then you still have the problem of it being a bit too cliché. Wow, crime doesn't pay? Being a criminal and then also being greedy leads to destruction? Haven't heard that one before. And then you're supposed to be rooting for Tommy, but again, he's a piece of shit. I understand wanting a better life, especially in a time when being a good boy is extra difficult, but I personally can't. Again, I'm not trying to piss anyone off. The story of Mafia, while cliché, has its place. It's a really well-crafted version of this story with extremely good characters and presentation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can appreciate a piece of media for its artistic and directorial merits, even if I don't end up caring about the characters' fates or the moral of the story in the end. My 2 cents. Now, go tell me how Scarface was the voice of a generation in the comments.
I got...
So, before I wrap this up, and after all the purists have left, after I so vehemently and utterly destroyed the genre they hold so dear, without a shadow of ever recovering, I want to preach a bit more about industry standards. The original Mafia from 2002 is a cult classic held in high regards by many, myself included. It's some of my close friends' favorite games from a storytelling perspective, and especially for that time. Games trying to be movies just didn't do so well in general. 2002 was a while ago.
Sorry for the delay, but...
Game did not age great. And with all that being said, the game is still worth playing today, despite the Definitive Edition. While the plot follows the same beats and it essentially delivers the same story, the dialogue and some of the more nuanced interactions can be very different. You can definitely come away from it feeling very differently compared to the Definitive Edition, and especially the ending is a standout. I'm very happy to report though that unlike some tragedies, this one is still available for purchase pretty much wherever you go to buy licenses to play video games, so big hats off to 2K, but I reserve the rights of takesy-backsies when this 200 view video will remind them of this problem and they nuke it out of orbit. I keep banging this drum of gameplay being vastly more important than story in video games, and I 100% believe it. Of course you can subvert expectations and make a point about the medium itself. Take Soma for example. Without the fear you get from personally playing the game, or the cognitive dissonance from the character's actions, it just wouldn't be the same experience. The Soma movie wouldn't land as hard, despite the basic nature of the game's mechanics. Then you have games like Firewatch or Heavy Rain that try and sometimes succeed at delivering a compelling story. However, you could get a vast majority of that experience just by watching someone else play it. When you're on Discord or by the water cooler, you usually share war stories with your friends, like that time you got a rampage in Dota, or an infinite combo in Slay the Spire. These are always interesting and distinct experiences. You can definitely talk about the game's story too, but it's a bit different. Everyone who has played played the same linear game has had the same core experience, and while the emotions, interpretations, and subjective approval you get from it are nuanced and make for interesting discussion, that's something that isn't unique to video games, and it can be attributed to pretty much all media. So where does Mafia sit within this discussion? I would personally place it right in the middle. The gameplay is generic, and the story is somewhat predictable, but it did everything it needed to be a proper video game. The presentation is spectacular, and the attention to detail and atmosphere are pristine. It adds moments of relief between story beats and sometimes allows you to enhance or mock what's happening in the narrative. You'll never see gangsters drive full speed against traffic in a Coppola movie, and if you did, it wouldn't be while one of the guys is trying to be deep. You can definitely get the gist of the plot if this were a movie, but the experience you get from playing the game is unique and can be influenced by the player. It definitely deserves to be a video game, and I thoroughly recommend it, and the original as well. If you have fun with the old country and have never tried this before, it's a no-brainer. And with that, I'll see you next time.
It's not what it looks like.